Hello, friends. We're going to be talking for a few minutes about reference, informational, and other nonfiction texts. And before you get bored and think, oh, I'm going to hate this, I really like reading stories, you're wrong. I know you're going to think, hey, I never really thought about that, and I can see why that might be interesting to a kid. So I'm hoping to change your mind. Don't get scared before we begin. There was actually a study done with first graders, and they were given many books on a table and asked to choose what they wanted as a free book. And the researcher assumed that they would pick the fictional fairy tales or the stories, but they actually chose books about animals, sports, and other fiction, nonfiction books. So kids really do love nonfiction. So as um, learners of children's literature and future teachers and parents, then you want to be informed about informational text so that you can expose it to kids. So here are some things you need to know. You've got to know the name Steve Jenkins. He is the king in the world of informational text. His parents knew a lot about animals. They were, I forget the name of animal scientists, but they knew a lot about animals. And so many of his books showcase facts about animals. So here's one that's very good, Big and Little, and in there it gives scale size of big animals and small animals, and then in the back there's always facts. I like this page because I like turtles, but this is the smallest turtle known and this is the largest turtle known, and all of his pictures are again drawn to scale. He's also pretty creative with where he puts the text on his book pages. He is the author of all these. I'm wondering if he's the illustrator. I think so. So one thing about his books I like, there always is kind of a story to follow along, and then in the back of every book you'll find information, facts that you can read more about. So that was a picture of the Nile crocodile and the African chameleon. Here's another book of his, Biggest, Strongest, Fastest, and in there he does a lot of comparisons. A cheetah versus a human. The world's largest animal is actually a jellyfish. I had no idea. The world's smallest animal can sleep in a teaspoon. In this particular book and many of his books, he'll give a little fact about the scale so that children can get an idea of what that means. You might have seen the book. I don't have it on this presentation with the giant gorilla hand. And every person I know, even adults, even children, they always put their hand right on that gorilla hand. It's the book called Actual Size. I love that book. I don't know why I don't have it on my shelf. Largest elephant. Here's a book where he grouped things by colors in the animal kingdom. These are things that are red, things that are yellow, things that are green, with the facts nearby. So Steve Jenkins, if you haven't heard of him, you've got to get a few of his books. He's excellent. I've heard him speak. He's very, very interesting and a smart guy. Other reference books you might see are picture dictionaries. These are really fun to have around your house for kids. It's interesting if you have one of these for kids, how many people do grab it and look at it and spend a lot of time with it versus a story. They read through it, and then put it off the shelf or put it back on the shelf. But kids, they'll spend some time with these. Inside it would have illustrations and labels and sometimes definitions for it, but usually just the label. So this would be an example of a picture dictionary, and you might see other things, similar books, but sometimes they're called word books. So here's a word book. I love these kind of books. They're fun to buy. I bought this one because my husband's name is Doug, so the kids think it's pretty funny to read all about this guy's world because it's not our world, and it labels all the parts of different scenes. So these are great for early readers as they're developing emergent reading skills. If you're going to talk about word books, you have to mention Richard Scarry. The best word book ever really is the best word book ever. So if you don't have this, please buy it. I love this book. In there, there's a page about the alphabet. So of course we've got to check the letter Q, which he has as Queen. And in that book, he also has other illustrations that are labeled with parts. So if you think back to your childhood, you probably spent a lot of time with these books as you were becoming a reader and you felt confident in knowing how to read some of those words. In my house, a reference book that's very popular are these encyclopedia books that you can buy now. So I usually buy these when I go to the Scholastic Warehouse, and it'll have each character and a little bit of information about them. So here's one of the ones we have, and here's another one that we have. And we always flip to this page because we think Miss Piggy should dump Kermit and go for Hot Pig. They've named this guy Hot Pig. And we also like to check out this guy. But my children have read every page of these encyclopedias and the details about each character. Sometimes it's interesting to get coffee table books. Here's one that I picked up about Disneyland. You can find these really cheap in some clearance sections of bookstores. So if you find a topic kids would like, these are really great informational books to have in a classroom or at your house. I like that one because it shows Disneyland through the years. So here's the sign that was outside of Disneyland throughout the years. And some information about the electrical parade. So that's a favorite in our house. And then you can find other informational books that answer questions. It usually has the text structure not written descriptively like someone's telling you about it. It's more written in as a question answer text structure. So they would ask a question, a child would say, oh, I wonder what the answer to that is, and then on the next page you would find the answer. So here's a great one about body functions, and you'll find lots out there. I've got 5 boys, so believe me, I've got a lot of body function books. This would be another reference type book where you could look inside and learn all about any of these topics. Guinness Book of World Records is also good for that, and Discover Kids and Time for Kids also has some good ones. So there's some examples of some informational reference and nonfiction books. I hope you check them out.